Pink is good on you.
What do you want to talk? Oh, thank you very much. It makes me feel very fresh and buoyant.
Good.
Yeah. Very vibrant.
Yeah. I was like affiliating a word that doesn't really mean what your intention is or what the person is thinking you're going to say, because, for the rest of the night, they're going to be like, I complimented the pink shirt. What is buoyant? Like, what do you mean buoyant?
Yeah.
He floats.
Yeah, like a floating thing, like he's floating on air.
Well,
It's something I've done for years, but enough about me. Let's talk about the success of the Blockbuster podcast.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all,
We're buoyant.
In regards to words, I have to mention the book by is it Jeff Tweedy from Wilco? He talked about songwriting, and he said put a list of nouns and a list of adjectives or whatever, and put together words that don't normally go together, and add that to a lyric, and you'd be surprised how much you can't make sense of something.
Wait,
Anyway,
was that for me?
well, it was just you mentioned buoyant.
What was that for?
He's like, what? You talking to me? Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going through some kind of internal monologue struggle.
I was. It was kind of
diary entry.
It's kind of
Once read
both.
something in a book. Thanks.
A little of both.
Permission.
What are your thoughts on? I see you got the Star Wars, the Darth Vader from Force Awakens helmet. What are your thoughts on the sequel trilogy?
Oh, overall, I struggle with it. I hate love relationship with it. I'm one of those people that I kind of just wish that they stuck George Lucas in there and whatever the result, like to finish this up. The wills start from whatever that original incarnation was, and just I don't like that it became like a network television show where it's like this director and then this director and then this. Maybe we'll go back to this guy. It's like it felt a little discombobulated and not buoyant.
Not buoyant. Yes, discombobulated worked there. So, yeah, I wish they had a plan all along. They just kind of were like, yeah, do your thing. Yeah. Ryan Johnson, do your thing. J.J. Abrams again.
I'm hearing really great things about Andor from friends of mine who work on the inside, and I'm telling you, man, I don't know. I'm feeling like that might be they've all had value in terms of like different versions of the Mandalorian and Boba Fett. It's like I've liked and not liked, and there's fan service, and then there's some slightly new introductions. But I like that this is before anything. All that other lore, it's ahead of we're way behind that. I like that they're starting in a different spot here. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, because we both loved Rogue One, and it just. Yeah, hoping it picks up from there. And obviously, it's before Rogue One because
I just watched that again the other night. I've watched the ending about 40 times, but it's a great movie. And I think that we were all ambivalent a little at first because like, who's this new group that wants to take credit for the reason the Death Star is no longer in service? And it's like, oh no, wait. The more you watch it, it really. For me, the emotional beats really penetrate beyond like what my personal hope was originally. Now as just a fan, I think it's right behind Empire Strikes Back for me.
Oh, I think I'm exactly right there with you, 100%.
Yeah. And then what's third for you then? I'm interested.
I would go Empire Strikes Back, Rogue One, and then I don't know. See, the original Star Wars, I waffle. If you ask me this next week, I'll say the original Star Wars is number one. But those are my top three.
It's like you waffle because there's a lot of things in A New Hope that are, wonderful, not only just from our childhood, everything else, but that still today are just like the bones of a movie. But obviously, like some of the special effects before they started upgrading and adding creatures and all that, in terms of just like the dialogue and scum and villainy and the voice of Vader, for all those reasons, you want to put it third. But I put Jedi third.
Okay. My issue with Jedi is I love the last 45 minutes, but then when I go back and watch, the beginning and kind of it just I don't know what this movie. I mean, I like the fact that they rescue Han, but they're spending a lot of time with Jabba's palace and all that stuff. It felt a little directionless. Here we are talking about Star Wars in every goddamn show.
You know why? Real quick, and then we'll segue into the film that we're going to talk about. But Do you know why they cliffhangered Empire? Do you know the real reason behind that?
I'd love to hear it.
Harrison Ford didn't have a contract for the third one. They didn't know if Han Solo was even going to be, available. And so they put him in carbonite and figured, like, all right, well, if you don't get him back, we can't afford him or whatever else, then that's the end of that tale.
He's not really dead, but he's he's away. It's No, I know.
Once Jedi gets close, and whatever that interim was, then they had to quickly probably finagle with Act 1 and figure all that out. So it is a little clunky on the re-entry into Endor's atmosphere. But but for me, it's just that third act, man. Everything about the whole thing with Vader and Luke and the Emperor giving, for me, not a lot of people notice this, but what really nails me emotionally is when the Emperor, which by the way, you didn't know his personality and everything, Palpatine and everything. You just knew him as evil, right? In that moment. And for me, what really resonated and still does, despite what I know about the origin, is like he gave Luke his props by saying, "So be it."
Yeah.
Jedi. And to me, when he gave him that, called him by his name, it was like the devil admitting that you're a god. And I love that.
Yes.
And it's like, I'm powerless to convert you, so all I can do is try to kill you. That's it. Like, and that is like the ultimate. It's the ultimate failure of the Emperor that Luke he's willing to lay down his life, which you just don't expect or see. It's that strength of character, which we all love.
Anyway, guys, I got to get out of here. This was great.
Yep, this was great. Star Wars talk with Dane Cook.
By the way, is that the Snyder Justice League Batman? Right behind you? Is that what
that's it's like from Toys R Us.
Oh, okay.
This Vader is one of there was a company that made the actual props for the movie, and I'm friends with the producer Brian Burke, who made the movies with Bad Robot. And so he gave me, when this company first started, he's like, "Hey, go get this. I have a Stormtrooper one in the other room with the blood across."
Oh, nice.
And I bought them, and then that company, for whatever reason, went belly up, out of business. So the collectibles that were supposed to be kind of cool, rare, but there's going to be a couple of hundred, turned into, they only made like 20 or 30, and I have a couple of them.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, we're tangent galore on the show, so don't worry about it.
You see my act?
No, I mean, your publicist reached out and we were like, I guess we'll have him on. I mean,
we'll make space.
Yeah. In all your, celebrity encounters, have you ever met any of the OG cast of Star Wars? Like Harrison Ford?
I talked to Bert Kreischer recently, and I was trying to get as much, kind of like Mark Hamill info, because he's in a film with Mark Hamill coming up.
That's right, yeah.
And so by proxy, I kind of was geeking out. But one of the coolest, man, I don't even know if I'm supposed to tell. Okay, first of all, I met Harrison Ford. I met everybody kind of sort of briefly over my career.
Right.
I had about a 10-minute conversation where I wasn't really talking with Harrison Ford so much as there was four of us in a circle.
Yeah.
And I was the guy every once in a while saying things like, Harrison, you nailed it. Just like whatever I picked this up. But I won't say the resource from this, but somebody very close to me who worked very closely on the new film said, "Do you want to see some CGI from some of the weapons that we never put in the movie that we thought were really badass?" And I was like, "Yeah, what do you got?" And he goes, "You want to see one of the lightsabers that initially we had for, it was either Luke or Rey. I don't want to like." And I was like, well, what's so different about this is, we've seen the double-sided.
Yeah.
And he goes, we did a mock-up in my office at Bad Robot. And he's like, so check it out. Now, by the way, when they do a mock-up, it's like a Marvel version of them, like using all their tech.
Right.
You know what I mean? Using every version of like the ultimate piece of technology. He hits play on this, and the guy who is acting out the scene in his office takes out a lightsaber and it's that whole thing, right? And then he goes, this was going to be during a fight scene where it was going to be really intense, close up. And he goes, now watch this. And they zoomed in on the lightsaber, and the guy looks up, and he twists his hand, a piece pops out, and he starts shooting lightsaber like a gun.
Oh, shit.
Oh, man.
In the face of the other. He was like, pew, 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 pew. Dude, goosebumps. I was like, why didn't that make the cut? And he's like, they didn't know if it felt a little cheap for a Jedi to use that, you know?
Well, according to Obi-Wan, it would be too uncivilized, you know? It's like a blaster,
right?
So, you know, it's just, too uncivilized.
Dane, I see you get so excited. Are you is it just Star Wars? Are you like a sci-fi fantasy nerd? Like what was kind of your, I could see how passionate you get about this stuff. So what was kind of your like journey as like a
little of everything. Now, I like bad movies. You know, I collected like Fangoria magazine, and I always liked, in fact, I have all of them. I have like every issue of that from growing up, and loved horror. I just like stuff. I think I always liked stuff, even though I love polished, you know, bombastic. I always kind of was like, I go for the people that are trying to do something with next to nothing, and it's really just a lot of like passion, you know, dirt spit kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you watch like fucking, I can swear, right?
Absolutely.
I'd watch like Phantasm. You know what I mean? That was like what, you know, Beware the Ball and all that, you know, crazy shit. If I had to pick one genre that I felt like, away from comedy, because comedy is going to be slotted in first no matter what we talk about. But
yeah,
I loved. I worked with Kevin Costner on a film called Mr. Brooks, and I talked more about Wyatt Earp with him on our film than I probably talked about our film. I love Westerns. Yeah. I think that's always been like a little dream side item thing for me to be affiliated and work on something like that.
Hell yeah, Westerns are great.
What were you apprehensive about doing a thing like Mr. Brooks not being a comedy, or was it were you like gung ho, like let's do this? Like,
I was probably more, you know, concerned of like, I wasn't nervous about doing it. I was more like, I hope this is received, because I'd like to do more things that are away from the, you know, you get kind of pigeonholed in Hollywood really easy until they see you do something else, and then they go like, I guess you can do that and a little bit of that. I grew up loving like Robin Williams and comics that were able to, play different, kinds of roles and approach things from complete, be immersed in a drama.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't really trepidatious about it. I just wanted to come through for Kevin because he believed in me. He called me up on the phone. I auditioned. I sent a submission tape. I was doing Employee of the Month. I went into my trailer one day in Albuquerque. I taped the scene. I sent it to Kevin Costner's team. Thought no one's ever going to watch this or see like Dane Cook and be like, no, he's like slinging dick jokes somewhere. Like, why would? And then suddenly I got a call from him, and he was like, "This is like really, this is spot on what I'm looking for, man." And he goes, "You really want to do this?" I was like, wholeheartedly, man. I go, I want to exceed yours and my expectations. He goes, "I'll see you in Shreveport." And next thing you know, I was there making a movie with like arguably one of the quintessential Hollywood multi-hyphenates, guy can do everything. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Kevin Costner, and I love Yellowstone. That's like my favorite.
He can do anything. Show. He can do anything. He's outside mowing my lawn right now. Actually, he went by and asked if he could just...
if he wants to pop in, and say hi, just if you want to give him a bottle of water or something, feel free.
Another serious role, Dan in Real Life. I love that movie. And that was not a comedy at all. And I thought you were fantastic in it. So
yeah, Peter Hedges came and saw me at a show, the director, and he asked me this. He goes, "Do you think your fans would like to see you in a role where you don't win and that you get to be vulnerable?" And I was like, "I think so." And then you know what he did? It's so wild. He went to my show that night. He stood in line with my fans waiting to come in. And he told me this later. He goes, "I just stood in line. I interviewed all your fans. I asked them a lot of questions. I said, I'm seeing Dane Cook for the first time. A lot of people were interested." And he asked fans, "Would you like to see like Dane and like maybe he doesn't get the girl?" And whatever fans he talked to, thank God they weren't like just like, "No, we just want to see him do jokes," because they were like, "That'd be kind of cool. We'd like that." So my fans got me the gig probably with Peter.
That's it. Excellent. It's like a makeshift focus group. Like that's that's crazy.
Yeah, man. It is kind of funny. Like my whole career, when I look at like I've been really fortunate and probably just damn lucky to like maneuver and kind of find myself sort of like one foot in comedy, but like then all of a sudden this producer's a fan, or this, somebody just, I heard you're interested in, and next thing you know, I it's like in tandem, I'm doing stand up, but I've had a kind of a cool career over now 3 decades doing like stuff that does get to facilitate that other side of your brain in creativity, where you're like, I want to be the bad guy. I want to be hated.
Yeah.
I want to be juxtapositioned.
It comes naturally to you, so I'd like to see some more of that.
Yeah, man. It was just like, I just wanted to be able to, and I still want to continue to. I'm writing a TV show right now that I'm looking at, pretty close to getting financed, and it's kind of like Pulp Fiction set in Vegas, like really bad guys doing some extraordinarily bad things, and I'm writing a role for myself that I know people are going to either really like seeing me like that, or it's going to be abhorrent to some people because it's not a nice guy.
How far into the process are you with that?
Yeah, I wrote it. I wrote the pilot. I wrote it. It's long story. Well, you know what? I'll make it kind of a long story because it's kind of interesting. Many years ago, I wrote a full feature called Thieves' Fortune. And Thieves' Fortune is, I've had it for about 12 years. It's like for me, like what Deadpool was to Ryan Reynolds. Like, I want to make this movie, and it's been, now 12 years of me polishing it, and Final Draft. Every time Final Draft has a new version, I write a new version of it.
Yeah.
The whole crux of that is, let me say this first. Tonally, imagine this in like kind of a John Wick sheen of a world. 5 career criminals that are brought together randomly to compete in an underground yearly annual event called Thieves' Fortune. And it's basically a scavenger hunt for bad people. Nobody knows what the list is for everybody else, and whoever does all their bad shit first wins the vig. That's the whole kind of like launching point. And of course, it turns into red herrings and intrigue and who done what. And I played tennis with Quentin Tarantino randomly 3 years ago. My buddy calls me up. He's in Hollywood. He goes, "You play tennis?" I go, "Nah." I go, "I do racquetball." I go, "I don't really like tennis. Hurts my feet, this, that, and the other." He goes, "Oh, my friend trains Quentin Tarantino, and he asked if there was somebody else who could play with the 3 of us." I was like, "I'll be there in 15 minutes.
Exactly. It's like Quentin Tarantino. Okay, now, like, you didn't say that at first. Like, what?
And so from that day and from some conversations, I really realized, like, sometimes before what I took from speaking with him and just being, watching his career and understanding how he got to the abilities that he got to through those conversations, I came away with it like, you don't have to just go for that one big thing. I can do a bunch of little things to prove myself along the way. And then hopefully maybe if this pilot goes, for example, and we do it on the cheap and it has that grit and it's got that, all the recipe, then maybe somebody goes, "Oh, do you want to, what else do you got?" And then you're like, boom, I got this script, and see if we can do that.
Yeah.
Love to hear passion.
Yeah, exactly. And I could listen to Quentin Tarantino interviews all day. Like, that's like the passion he has behind it. And even, the advice he gives, like, just watch movies. You don't have to know about lighting. You don't have to know about, sound and all this. Like, just watch movies and make movies, and you'll learn that stuff along the way. It's just, if you're passionate about it, just go for it. And I just love that, his attitude about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing this project.
And I will tell you the other thing. Not only is he damn right there, but as a person who's been on the inside of like some of the most unbelievable creative meetings, all that stuff that keeps you out of the business because you're not ready, not good enough, your script is not this, you haven't taken this class. That shit is all, it doesn't matter once you're in with other creatives, because what you find is nobody inside's following those rules.
Yeah.
Nobody. In fact, they're improvising a lot in real time because things are like an amoeba. They're ever changing. And so all that stuff that they tell you to prepare. I've been in the room or in the circle now for over 15 years. It's really about writing something your way. If you want to put 5 acts in a movie, fucking do it. If you want to start at the end, your passion and what you put into something means way more than following everything by the numbers. Really rarely. I've never been in a meeting where they go, hey, everything was delivered by the numbers. And we're starting at number 1.
Well, you can
garbage.
Exactly. You could do that with, no offense to anybody, and people do great work, but, you could do NCIS or whatever, and that's by the numbers, or Law and Order or something. But for the most part, it's these passion projects, it comes through, and that's what grabs other people. You can tell when the work has been put in.
Yeah.
And that's what grabs audiences. And so that's great to hear. And I'm excited. You just, laying that what little you're allowed to say about your thing. I'm in already. I want to see it.
I hope we get it together, man, with a little bit of, it's all lady luck, but you got to have some gumption and some buoyancy.
I do have to, I'm always tempted to not ask this, but I kind of want to ask it. There's so much there's so much luck, and obviously you have to have a base level of talent. Can you talk about, and what you do have, and so many people in the business do, but is there anything that you're like, you know what, this thing is fucking awesome, and then it just whatever the powers that be, just like, is there like one of those things that you have that like, oh, I wish this happened because it would have been fucking dynamite? Do you have any of those?
Oh man, I mean, there's definitely stuff that you hope comes together a certain way, and then you see the final edit and it's just not there. You know what I mean? It's like, and then sometimes you do something and it's the opposite, right? You just don't really know until they finally assemble all those pieces. I think that the thing that hurt the most in my career, watching it present itself in a way that I did not want it to be, received, turned out later to be one of the kind of best shitstorms that I went through. And it was my first comedy special that I did on Comedy Central. It's called Comedy Central Presents Dane Cook. And for another day, I'll tell you it's a 30-minute insane fucking just like me getting beat up all the way up to filming that. But what came from it is an unhappy experience, me being put in front of cameras when I wasn't ready on a night that was poorly detailed in an environment that was not ready to position me potentially for something beyond. It was almost like, oh, they don't really value an early version of like my brand or my voice or persona. They're just trying to, let's just do this and get out of here. And I'm like, oh, this. So I remember just going home after that experience. I was so broken down by that. I was really mortified. All the infights, and again, maybe a story for another day, like what really happened. But when I finally saw the edit, I was like, it still hurt to watch because like, oh, this isn't what I wanted people to see of me. Some of it was like almost oversharing, like my frustration, and I was still rolling it and segueing it to comedy, but certain things in it were like, man, I'm like on the attack here, and I can tell that I'm fucking pissed. Or
it's crazy how you view your own work and stuff. It's because I mean, isn't that basically what launched you?
That was a smash.
That's special.
Yeah, well,
I mean, that's.
I thought, oh, I'm not affable enough. I look like a bit of a prick,
like a crazy person.
Yeah, and I'm pouring water on myself. I didn't plan that. I'm grabbing the camera. A moment that kind of defined later, like my style, I guess, was like they told, I was so angry at them, and they were so, just non-communicative with me. But I remember them being like, you don't look at the cameras and obviously don't touch the cameras. And then just to kind of piss them off, the producers, I would grab the cameras and be like, hi, America. Are you enjoying, like,
and I think, were you right in front of the camera when you're doing Alien too, all wet? Like you're like, like.
They were like, don't try not to touch your hair because continuity. And then I fucking was like, oh yeah. And I poured water on myself.
Yeah.
I did everything ass backwards. And in some ways, just my youthful naivete and a bit of fear made me go into like fight or flight mode. And yet there was still, the whole way, comedy still was working and in there. And so even though it was the worst thing that I feel like I'd ever done, when I finally watched it and had a little bit of say in how it was packaged, it became later something that defined my career. And now anything I ever do, I try not to hold on so tight, because I think sometimes it's the missteps and the real-time adjustments that people are more like moved by than even the precious 1, 2, 3 setup that everybody's hoping to capture when the cameras are rolling. You want to be on the cusp of a little bit of fear and a little bit of what if, and you don't want to be so rehearsed. And I learned that then.
Well, it goes down to, sports and everything. You have a game plan. It did not go as planned at all, but you still came up with the victory at the end. You got the last second field goal or whatever. Like, it's,
that
it's
that worked. Then there was other things that, like other movies and stuff that, like, you were out, like, just don't work. Stinkers, they're on at 2:00 in the morning, and even I turn them off. It's like,
well, no, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant like things that maybe just not, I wasn't meaning, I wasn't asking about failures.
You've
just
offended
more like
Dane.
things that didn't come to fruition that you wish maybe like I had this idea, or maybe it's the thing you're working on now.
Right.
It's just like, I wanted to do this thing. And,
right.
That
I understand. Well, I wanted to work with Judd Apatow early in my career. I thought that, like, at a certain pivotal point, as I was kind of reaching a certain echelon in my career, and I love Freaks and Geeks, and to me that'll always, I know Judd, and we've performed together at comedy clubs, but I always felt like I was going through a bit of, almost like the way the media kind of starts to take the narrative, and at that same time I almost couldn't get to Judd because there was so much around me, and you had to get to know me to know that, like, that's all the crazy bullshit that the internet pins. And it was a missed opportunity. So yeah, that is, like, to this day, I see Judd and I get a little bit of me is like always a little like I wish when I was a younger man we could have found something together.
See, that's so stupid. That's kind of what I was meaning. Like, that's ridiculous. I mean, why not? Judd Apatow and Dane Cook would have been an amazing. You guys would have come up with something incredible. And the fact that there's, like, I don't know, whatever tension or, like, hesitation or, like, people looking the other way, I think that's dumb, because it would have been a winning combo.
You just learn, hey, but you don't always get that incoming phone call that you would like, even though you're feeling like, okay, I guess I'm kind of in. I'm in the community, but even then, there's a lot of politics, and the reality is, if in the zeitgeist or whatever the trending topic, if there's some stuff out there that, like, doesn't put you in a great light, even if it's bullshit, even if it's not real, and it's just something that people have tried to just create around you, it still affects your business and your brand. So there's times in my career then I've been knocked back, and it's simply because of just the ebb or the flow.
That's so stupid.
Yeah. One of the two. What about the buoyance?
Yeah, well, yeah, you're floating.
Hey, listen, you know what? if you're not buoyant, then you're never going to become a plum.
There we go. I mean, that's in my head that made complete
buoyant
sense.
and the plum are not going to. The two shall never meet.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's how that saying goes. We're gonna sprinkle in other questions, I'm sure, throughout this, but
yeah, we're going. Yeah.
But first, let's talk about
I don't care. It's all good. This is fun.
Okay. How long do we have you for, by the way?
10 minutes ago, I was done. No.
Oh, shit.
No. I'm good. Actually, this was the last thing of today's PR. We were talking about Above It All day, which is available for pre-order right now on moment.co/Dane Cook. If you'd like to do that, comes
Tell
out
us more.
Well, is that your special?
That's my new special, man. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Let's talk about that a little, and then we'll get into the movie.
Okay.
So you've talked to your ear. You've talked people's ears off about it all day, I'm sure. So you're sick of it. But I am just curious how it all worked out. It was at your house. It's at your house, man. What?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
12 years ago, I sat on my porch when I bought my first home here, and I was like, I'm going to film a special here someday. There's just something. There's some synergy. There's something in my front yard and it felt like a stage, the way the porch was. And so I called up Marty Kullner about a year ago. Marty and I did Vicious Circle together in Isolated Incident. He's a legend. I grew up loving his stuff when he worked with Carlin, and he did like, early HBO Carlin specials. He was the guy that I wanted to, help shape me in terms of like in the edit bay.
Yeah.
And so I called Marty and I said, I got this great idea, and came up to the house, and he goes, where do you want to do the show? And I go, you're standing here. And we started talking about like this idea of like getting some drones up here and how we could fill it out. And next thing you know, we were last March shooting on a Friday, Saturday night. And I will tell you, like in my now 31 years doing stand-up comedy, I've never felt like such a feeling of both using every tool in my arsenal from special to special or album to album. But then like what happened once people were in my home with me and I could talk very like candidly within the show. It's awesome, man. It's I think it's the funniest and most introspective comedy special I've ever done.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah,
Can't wait.
I can't wait either. That's
thanks, fellas.
How many people were there?
In total, over the 2 nights, we had about 1,200 people.
Okay.
And cast and crew and like some other friends and some people that were hiding in, different places to be able to get a vantage point. It was almost like the Little Rascals. There were like people like peeking through my fence, and one of my other neighbors just threw their drone in the air and they like watched me on their drone. I didn't even know. They were like, "Oh, yeah. I drove it too. Should I not have recorded that?"
That was my next question is how much did your neighbors hate you after this?
They were all invited. I invited everybody, but I do tell one story about it's in the trailer. If you watch the trailer we put out a couple of days ago, I do talk about one of my neighbors who's not always the easiest, but you always have to have one. Wherever you live, there's always got to be that one neighbor that a little bit of a tete with. But for the most part, the show it's just I financed it myself. I did the whole thing top to bottom with Marty, and my whole goal was like, I don't want to go through the system that a lot of my comedian friends are going through, and they feel unfulfilled and they feel like unsatisfied budgetarily. And some of these are comics I won't name, but some of the comics I'm sure you love, and they call me and they're like, I'm disappointed. And I was like, well, I want to deliver something to my fans and hopefully new fans that if nothing else, you'd be like, man, this guy like poured his whole heart and budget into creating a real cool piece of art that I hope will, be around for a long time.
Love it. Love it so much. I have my final question.
Okay.
Dane, you'd seem so comfortable in your own skin. You've had a great career. I mean, you're very buoyant tonight. Were you always doing, like, you seem so centered and everything. Were you always this because we've talked to a lot of comics on the show, and again, not to mention your names, not everybody is as centered as you are tonight. And so did you go through anything where you weren't like you're very comfortable in your own skin? Did you always have this well adjustment?
The early part of my life, I was very kind of like beta, and I was an introvert, and I spent a lot of time concerned in questioning my place, like in school or in a function. I just had a lot of anxiety, right? And I was the wallflower. I was not like the funny kid or class clown. And so the reason I think that, it's not a facade, because I love talking about all this stuff. I'm a genuinely curious person, but I'm also like, I love to talk about, I don't care if it's failure or success. I like just getting into the real facts about whatever it is that we're communicating on. But I think the thing that kind of defines where I'm at and how comfortable I am is just realizing there's still that kid in me that had so much anxiety and fear and was so scared of like my own voice, that every day that I get to do this more and I still get to be a part of cool shit, I never forget that I'm very fortunate to have this, to have people that care about me and want to listen to me. And it's a blast, man. It's been a good run, even when it's not always a good run.
Excellent.
Yeah. No, I mean, I hear you. But no,
there was a lot in that sigh, man. There was a whole.
no, I was gonna then go into another tangent, and I was like, we got to respect this guy's time.
Oh my lord!
Yeah, I know we can go on for hours.
Yeah,
there was a lot of ambivalence in that sigh.
No, I think it was. I think it's actually Ben wants to. Ben could probably do a sharesies about his anxiety and him being a beta male when he was a young guy.
Well, listen. Here's the reality. We're all here together. We're talking shit. We could talk about cool stuff. And I know you said my PR reached out, but let's not forget who told my PR to reach out.
You did, my friend.
Okay. I'm here because I'm excited to talk about the movie we're going to talk about.
I know.
So are you a fan of the podcast, or are we just pretending here?
Oh no, I'm a fan. Oh yeah, no, I'm a fan as well. I mean, the thing about me is like most of my days when I'm not like either writing or here doing something to promote, like most of my year is like I keep podcasts and stuff in the background, and people know that, so they send me links all the time. So I've popped onto you guys' podcast, and you'd be surprised at how many, or people would be surprised at how much content that I've enjoyed watching and seeing how people are growing their fan base, especially through COVID. I was watching so much shit, so much. Yeah. So no, I'm definitely, I'm here because I love talking about films and stuff, but I dig what you guys are doing. I like the energy.
Oh, we're honored.
Dave had no energy before the show, and you popped up, and he was ready to go.
Dave was not a fan.
Well, I took a half day today. Went to the beach with the wife. She cracked open some beers, and so I'm like 5 hours in. So
Drinking in the sun. That's not a recipe for disaster. That's not a fight with your wife on the way home.
No, we're good. Yeah, that's actually God damn it, that's so true, right? You go out, and then it's like, then when you're in the car, you're like, oh, we got the dog, we got to clean up. We're sandy. You get cranky, you start bickering. Thankfully, that didn't happen today.
Yeah, listen, 5 beers in the sun, you're going to get a little persnickety with the missus.
Persnickety.
Without fail, almost.
That's right. Yeah. So we have people in the show business come on to speak about film and get their perspective on everything. And the film you chose is the comedy classic Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Have you talked about this one yet?
We did before we started doing guests on the show, but it's been a long time. So
we
I'm
allowed
glad
double ups for guests. Yeah, that was like 4 years ago.
Yes.
All right.
So this one, first question we always ask: why did you choose this film?
Oh my God, that's a. We needed to like gently flow. That's a lot. Why did I choose this? Oh my God. Okay, let me unpack. You got Steve Martin.
Yeah.
Childhood hero of mine. For everything that he accomplished. First arena comedian. Rock star comic. So Steve Martin, John Candy. I worked at a video store, and I put Uncle Buck on every single day. I mean, the 2 years I worked at Video Horizons. Kind of like a Blockbuster type of
Hey.
Hello.
And so two comedic masterminds, right? And then you've got, of course, the writer and the director. And it seemed like every element of that feature, even leading up to it, I was already like, oh my God, please don't disappoint me. Like, I remember being like, I really want this one to work. I'd kind of already been understanding like, oh, people can have clunkers, and not everything that a comic or funny people does is always like, formulated the right way. So seeing that movie the first time, and then now having seen it a lot, it moves me for both the relationships of the people and why they did the film together. And then of course, the many different beats, tones, and tempos that film brings to the table.
Yeah, it's well, I'm interested to hear, your stories of Steve Martin. I know you've had, you know him.
Yeah.
You're like I know you guys have had meals together, and
I thought you were going to pull him up.
Oh, look at that. Nice. Look at that. Yeah. My dad, who is much older than you, don't worry, but he also he's like, that was his teenage years, like his stand up, and he's constantly still quotes his stand up and everything like that. Like it's been in my head for forever. I love the Father of the Brides and those films. Like it's just anything he does, I'm on board.
Even Only Murders in the Building, which is on Hulu now, season 2, great show.
Yep.
He's great.
Martin Short was also a childhood hero of mine when I would watch him on Saturday Night Live. So that show, in particular, season 1, I really loved. But Steve Martin sent me this book, and I'll share this with you guys. I don't know if I've ever shared this. He wrote something nice on the side. He sent this to me, and it says, "Dear Dane, read this and just substitute your name for mine, Steve Martin."
Beautiful.
Love it.
That.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great message.
From my childhood hero, and from somebody that when I watched Planes, Trains was a major contributor into me going, I don't have to be wicked funny all the time. There are ways to be funny where you can adjust on the fly, and you can be like setting up the other person for the laugh, or you could be the brunt of the laugh, or you could be self-deprecating to get the laugh. Like, he kind of gave me permission to try different things, even with like something somewhat standard comedically when I was doing my film work a lot.
Yeah, that's a great call, especially for this movie and really through Martin's career. Is if you look through the movies he's in, he's never like, I mean, maybe if you go back to SNL skits, but most of his films, he's setting other people up. And other than a couple.
Yeah, he's the straight. Like
a couple of scenes in this movie where he's throwing F-bombs and stuff. He's really serving things up for John Candy, who was just, oh my God. I mean, is there ever been a more lovable?
He's also so good at that whip snap reaction, kind of the button in a moment where it's like he sets you up, then something is happening, and then he's reactionary, and you kind of see him go through like the entire 7 levels of grief in some moments.
Yeah,
that he makes it look effortless, and I will tell you that is some of the hardest acting to do right there.
Yeah, that escalation of whatever's happening. Yep, love that.
Yeah.
Well, and
to take a broad moment and to pin a gravity-filled, heartfelt ending to a broad moment, like that's very rare air right there that they got into quite a few times in this film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got a ton of heart, this movie.
Yeah, 100%. Well, yeah, let's get into those moments. Yeah, let's say. I mean, first of all, I think this, like, is this the Thanksgiving movie? Like, there's really no Thanksgiving movies. Like, I think this is it. Like,
yeah, everything gets pushed to Christmas, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I like that you guys brought this up, and I think that we should maybe be the contingency or the faction in really stapling that, because people always want to talk about Die Hard or Christmas Story, and you're always kind of pinning or Charlie Brown is thanks. It's like, can we really start talking about like Planes, Trains is Thanksgiving? That's
right. Yeah.
This is a must on Thanksgiving. There's not a kid or an adult of any age that can't find stuff in that movie that they would love to just sit back with a full belly and be guffawing at.
Oh, this is as good as it gets. And the message of this film, you've got a sort of odd couple, and you got one guy who's highly successul, has a beautiful family, and really has taken that for granted. And on the other hand, you have this seeming buffoon who really has nothing but himself and is kind of just two flawed characters. He's lost his way too, and he doesn't. They both have their issues, and they come together. And if there is anything to be thankful for, it's family and have people that you can connect with. And this is the perfect Thanksgiving movie. And I'm so happy that John Hughes didn't make it a Christmas movie, right? I mean, we're just a month away, and you could have maybe even done better in the box office or something. But this is all about Thanksgiving and being thankful for what you got.
John Hughes, prolific to say the least. I worked with Howie Deutsch, who is very good friends with John Hughes. They worked together on Some Kind of Wonderful, which Howie directed, and of course John wrote. One day I was doing a scene in My Best Friend's Girl, and Howie Deutsch sits next to me. They're doing some lighting. We got about 20 minutes to, eat some Fritos and talk shit. And we're sitting in those rickety director's chairs that always look so fun and cool when you see them on TV. And then you sit in and you're like, who the fuck invented this? This is the most posturpedic, anything that I've ever sat in. You just rather sit on a swan and hold its neck than sit on that chair. But we were kibitzing. And he goes, you want to hear a wild story about working with John Hughes? No. Yeah.
Nah, I'm good.
He goes, I'm doing some kind of wonderful, and the studio comes back and says, this scene needs some polish. These 3 pages, we got to cut this or change it. Put the car scene in, whatever. They had to consolidate something.
Yeah.
He goes, I go to John's, wherever he was living at the time, and he goes, John, I need 3-page rewrite, and we need it by Monday. So, can I help you to do this? And John was like, oh, yeah, perfect. Or John was like, yeah, come over tonight. We'll do it. So Howie goes, I go there. Howie's like, I'm exhausted. I've been filming and this and that. John says, what do you need? And he goes, I just need A, B, and C. Howie goes, I lay down on the couch and I fall asleep. He goes, I wake up about 3 hours later. It's like 3:30, 4 in the morning. He goes, and John's just feverishly sitting at the dining room table typing. He goes, and I get up and I clear my eyes and I walk over. He goes, and John's so excited. It's so late or early at this point. He goes, and he quickly hands me like 35 pages. And he goes, and Howie goes, I looked at it and I said, John, what? I need a 3-page rewrite. What is this? And John looked at me and he goes, no, I didn't get to that. But I had an idea for something. Check this out. I'm going to call it Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh, shit.
Oh, my God. It's like, I don't care about that rewrite. Let me just write a whole nother
that occurred
movie.
to him on an overnight fast pass rewrite for some kind of wonderful. So, listen, John Hughes, we all know it's like we bow to the altar of all things John Hughes. So his involvement, the writing, these very gifted actors, and the Michael McKeans, one of my favorite scenes in movie history, comedy history, reactionary history, is when he finally says, when the burnt out car is sitting there, he finally looks at not Steve Martin, finally John Candy, and he looks down at him and he says, do you really believe this car is safe for highway travel? And John Candy's perfect take, he goes, I do. Yes, yes, I really do.
It's the funniest moment in the whole movie.
It's got to be. It's like it. I just watched it with my fiance like 5 times before we started. I just have to watch this scene again and I laughed every time, and I always laugh. John Candy just did that one beat. Yeah, and that sincerity. I do.
He's so innocent.
Yeah, I will even tell you. I think it informed my stand-up that scene, because I told my girl, I said, you know those moments when I'm doing a show and I say something really irreverent or something really just kind of really fucked up, and I go, and then I'll take that beat and I'll say something like I'll be like I fall down on my lawn and I'm laying in shit. I've laid in shit. I am covered in shit. And then they're laughing, and then I just will take a beat and I'll go, sincerely. And I'll say a word like sincerely or wholeheartedly or something that's just uber meaningful. And it always gets that extra nick of laughter.
Yeah.
I said that has to be from John Candy in that moment. Just adding, no, sincerely. Right. And meaning it. Even though I don't mean it, but I mean it.
Yeah, it's interesting how you can get like cadences, through other people, like even just like cadences of, the way they speak and everything. Like that's how you can, adjust your comedy and your act and everything like that. Like it's just, yeah. And I think comedies, especially like this, like it's a shame that, the Oscars, they're essentially bullshit anyways, but like, they should be more considered for, these types of awards. Because, just watching John Candy in this, it's just like, just the way he's talking when he's first meeting Steve Martin in the airport, and he's like just chewing his gum, like the choice of
so
having.
Annoying.
Yeah, it's just. Yeah.
But the subtext of like, I'm going to do everything I can to not let you see my pain. Oh, it's like, wow, man, that is like, talk about just a shot to the heart. when you finally realize from the ending. But then just that's what we do in life. We all kind of put on like we fake it till we make it, and you realize that there's a guy who, like you said, he was lost. This lost soul, and trying to find any place in the world as he's meandering from spot to spot. Just beautiful. A real gift of a performance, especially that scene.
I think that's a really good insight. One I didn't quite connect in that way is he's basically he blabbers so he doesn't have to think about himself, right? He's always just putting on a show, even if it's, if he has a nudie novel, if he's taking his socks off and complaining about his dog's barking, he will just not like be introspective for 1 second in his entire life.
Right.
That's
because he doesn't know yet who will love him. Like his wife loved all the anomalies. We're all anomalies, right? There's all these anomaly type behaviors and things that have happened to us, and we all, we wear them. And his wife knew all of them and loved him. And he probably had never really ventured beyond that to go like, who else in my realm will it truly accept me for me? You know what I mean? That's just, it's what makes the comedy funnier is the heart.
Yeah. And well, because you got the whole scene with, where it's like the most serious moment in the film where he, says how, I'm an easy target. Like, yeah, you can go after me. Like,
yeah.
But I like me. I always laugh just because Family Guy did a parody on it. So, it's, but anyway, is Seth MacFarlane a dick? Is he, do you know him?
Let's just keep going, guys.
Okay. I'm but anyways, there's that heartfelt moment, with
this is how you know if somebody is a dick, and when the person that you're interviewing goes, I just wish that person nothing but great health, continued success.
They were
thousands
great.
of years of burning.
But anyway, the whole scene.
That scene in the motel, and of course Steve Martin with the great physicality.
Yes,
Jenny Cathy.
The physical comedy. Yeah,
just that blend of like that humanity and then goofiness. Same with that really bonkers scene where they almost die in the car accident. He turns into the devil, and just so fucking outlandish, and yet it works. It works. It shouldn't have worked, but it works.
Yeah, that reminds me. I think I don't know who's seen this movie, but Norm Macdonald's Dirty Work. They kind of did a parody of this with Gary Coleman in the car.
Yeah, who hasn't done a version of that now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it was like Tommy Boy. Everybody had to have like, the treachery into the car scene or whatever that might be. But
I don't think that's so funny watching this because like before we get there, because I think the automobile part is my favorite. The train, I don't know if that's my favorite because it kind of
it's short and not much happens.
Yeah, it just seems a little dated and a little stereotypical. But
sure.
The car stuff, there's the messing around song. John Candy is just like playing the organs and doing the trumpets. And he gets his jacket somehow caught. Like it's this whole thing, and we're there for it.
Yeah, but in the same movie with Tenderness, you had a scene where Steve Martin was like, "Give me my fucking keys to my fucking car," and then she's like, "You're fucked," and you're like, this movie, like even our movies today, I've done our movies, like they don't want you to do that. They don't want you to go that vicious and like F-bomb. That's it.
It's like a dozen F-bombs.
It's a dozen. It is like a dozen.
Yeah.
Well, he needed to be the Steve Martin character. It's interesting because I think what the movie does a great job of is you start to you see yourself within the Steve Martin character, but then you're like, this guy's kind of an asshole, really. I mean, we're laughing at him. He's kind of a douche.
But you can't tell me, man, this is where I wish we could be watching a documentary in real time about the making of. You cannot tell me that in the edit bay at one point they didn't watch that scene and go, like, we have this beautiful film with comedy. Like, are we killing ourselves here? Are we ruining ourselves by making him like the most unlikable person? But he gets it back, I guess, by her saying, you're fucked. But the reality is he's so mean there.
Right. Yeah.
No,
Like he's at his breaking point, but not only the not liking the character, there's the whole financial side of it. That's what made the movie rated R, which then is going to lessen your audience, with younger people and things like that. So it's like, but for them to have the balls to stick that in, it's now like one of the most iconic scenes, in comedy history. So it's like, for them to keep that in is just remarkable.
If I had one little gripe about the movie, and maybe you guys know what I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously it ends so emotional, right? Mm-hmm. It's so tender, and even the music they chose for it, it's like it feels like a different movie starting at the end.
A little bit, yeah.
And I think part of me always wished there was some kind of stinger or button that was one more funny scene, but there isn't, right? I'm not wrong about that, am I?
No, I mean,
the door closes and you kind of go like, oh, they're gonna eat dinner together.
Yeah.
I think we all hope there was like, the Ferris Bueller's after the credit, like,
right.
I still to this day feel like I love that they did that, but even if they had like the door closes and the phone rings and Steve Martin picks it up, and I don't know, it's the woman who worked at the rental place, like, you fucked this car up.
Yeah.
Something. I just needed one more little jolt to remind us, like, man, this movie was so funny.
Yeah, like or John Candy does something at Thanksgiving dinner that kind of
makes an awkward comment to Steve Martin's wife, like just that totally throws things off. Yeah, but
we'll send that to John Hughes.
Yeah. Well, posthumously, what are we doing here?
Dave, come on.
You're not
sorry, I should have said it. I said it that way on purpose, and I shouldn't have. Sorry.
I know he passed earlier in your career. No, I'm saying John Candy. He passed earlier in your career. Did you ever get a chance to meet him at all?
Did not.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, definitely like very sore about that. I wish I could just to meet him and say, thank you. I meet some people, they childhood, heroes and people that you grew up watching, the Goonies, and I met Sean Austin, like little things that you're just like, thank you for, making such an impact on my youth.
Candy has this magnetism that is just, it's unbelievable on screen. Yeah. I mean, he's not attractive or anything. It's just, you just want to watch him.
He's charming, He's charming though, It's crazy. Now, as movie watchers, us movie fans are usually always.
You can say cinephiles. It's okay. We're all friends.
Cinephiles.
We used to call ourselves cinephiles, and then we watched. I don't know. At least for me,
Dave's very cynical and very.
I used to be like, I'm going to watch the best of all the movies, and I have my, my top 5, which is better than yours. And now I'm like, fuck it, just whatever makes you happy.
Well, so what do we call ourselves then? Are we movie junkies? Are we going?
We like what we like. I think that's the Applejack's slogan. Yeah. But I was going to bring that up because as movie lovers, as cinephiles, we typically quote a lot of movies. Yeah. What are your main quotes from this film, Dane, that you typically reference?
Oh boy. I think that was the one we talked about though. That one in the car has to be, well, I love the car. We've talked about it. We really nailed them. The car rental moment, Michael McKean's whole performance as the state trooper, knowing how funny, Spinal Tap and everything. And he played that, he went like under Steve Martin. He probably came to set that day. It was like, all right, you got Steve Martin. He's kind of here. And then I'm going to be like, really just like in that trooper mode. You know what I mean? Like that hardcore statey. That scene to me is probably the one I've quoted the most. And I don't really have other quotes that I think are like my favorite, more than just like physical moments or reactionary moments. But I think it would probably be the car scene. That's it.
Mine's car scene, when they're driving on the wrong side of the road, or it might be after. But anyway,
maybe like That's not a pillow. Those aren't pillows. You know?
Well, that's one of the most famous.
I gotta ask.
No, Dave, it's my turn, dude.
No.
I was about to
real quick.
say it, bro.
Just hold on to thought, Dane. There's some debate whether or not the John Candy character was whacking off in the bed. Some say he was. What do you think?
I've never looked that closely at that scene. Is that really something that's in the zeitgeist?
Yeah, that's what they were thinking. He was
What, like in the first
jerking the
motel?
chicken, yeah. Before the night, yeah. When Steve Martin was in the shower, Candy was trying to pull one off before he came back.
You know?
I mean, again, the whole thing with the underwear and the dude. There's not a scene in that movie. I know some of them. You know, everything kind of gets a little dated, but for the most part, that movie, like scene to scene, holds up. But quotable wise,
what do you got, Ben?
They're not pillows, but
yeah,
maybe probably the safer highway travel. That's got to be.
For some reason, this one always sticks out to me is when they're talking back and forth in the car about what annoys them about each other. And John Candy says, well, it must be swell to be so perfect and odor-free. And that just, to me, it's so many layers to that. Like, so perfect and odor-free.
This is like maybe the most minute moment that anybody would ever say they love. But I'll tell you, this would be on my top 10 favorite moments, which is after they come past the 18-wheelers and they jam the brakes and the luggage flies like, halfway up the highway. And then Steve Martin's fingers on the dashboard. The sound that his fingers make, whoever did the sound effect for that moment, the sound of his fingers coming off that dashboard, that makes me laugh.
Yeah.
And it's also worth mentioning, I think, where these two really bond. When they're in the hotel together and they pop open the little alcohol bottles, where they're eating Doritos, whatever, and they have a laugh. And there's just something about the two of these guys having a laugh over their situation, which is just so, I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's not only just funny, it's also, it kind of hits you in the feels a little bit.
It did. And not only that, did it hit me in the feels, but when I was out on the road for all those early years doing stand-up, I went to that scene, and sometimes you end up on the road with like people that you just happen to be going to the same gig. So comics that maybe aren't even like necessarily friends or even like each other's comedy or whatever. Like you'd be like, oh, you want to split the gas? Yeah. And those moments, for me, sometimes turned into something a little bit more enticing and fulfilling, because I just allow myself to be like, find something funny about this person, even though there may be nothing endearing about the person, or maybe they thought something of me. I always try to, because of that movie, be like, oh, when I'm out there on the road, I'm going to be out there for maybe the rest of my life. I don't know if I'll ever be on the road, but I got to try to find ways to make it fun and funny.
Love it.
What do you think makes Steve Martin, Neil in the movie, after the train breaks down, they decide to go their separate ways. Then he sees John Candy struggling with the case, the chest. What do you think? Why does Neil go back and help him? Why, like at that point, why does he go back? What do you guys think?
When I watch that scene, right, it's like it feels like John Candy's putting on a little bit of a performance there, right? Like,
okay, like feel sorry for me, like
yeah, he's doing a little bit of a baby,
yeah,
like a puppy.
And I guess, like, would you look at it and go, like, is there any element to, like, Steve Martin's occupation or whatever he brought to that character that would go, like, I gotta respect this guy's business. This is a business decision for him to be acting this way because he needs me in this moment. So maybe, like, there's a little piece of, in their character work, maybe they kind of felt like, is it just I felt sorry for him, or is it like kind of respect that this guy's like he already knows me enough to kind of know how to spark something in me? I don't know. Maybe that might be looking too deep into it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because as successful as Steve Martin is, when they have no money, it's actually John Candy, the one who he's a good salesman. He's a natural.
Right.
He has a personality. He's the one who's actually getting like a few bucks. You know, Steve Martin would have no chance of. He would have nothing. You know, he couldn't find his way out of he could never find his way out of the situation that he's in because he's so used to like his upper middle class lifestyle. And maybe there was something there that resourcefulness or
like maybe his elitism was kind of softening and he was realizing like, I don't know, maybe he needs buds. Maybe he needs like fucking fellas that are like this guy. You know what I mean? Maybe the people that he's around are a little yuppie and snooty and phony. But I think that again, in the writing, if I was going to be kind of like really, you almost want to go like, was there a version where it was clearer, like maybe like Steve Martin needed a friend? You know what I mean? Like he needed the love, like male love more than the story that we kind of saw of like what John Candy wanted and needed. Because I'm sure they could have written in there something too, where his buddies for golf never invite him, and he's like, "Oh, what are you guys doing today?" And they're like, "Oh, we didn't think you'd want to come," and you could have like put a seed in, like, "Oh, he's lonely. He needs a buddy. He doesn't have a really cool." Like I didn't have a really good friend. I had some acquaintances. And then I made a friend like in the mid 90s and I was like, oh, that's what a real friend should be. You shouldn't be chasing friendship. And and so I almost wonder if they could have or wanted to or felt like it's already in there. It's in the performance of like, he really needed love too as well from real friendship.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, not only are you kind of ignoring your family, but you kind of have no life outside of your job. You don't have friends. You're not spending enough time with your family, and you're not doing anything else outside of that. And you're kind of leading an empty existence, and you're very entitled, but yet you're missing out on so much about life. And by the way, if you want to see my buddy, he's right there. That's my buddy.
You show me your buddy. You can camera 3, cut over to the buddy. Years before the internet started kind of like throwing this shit out, you know, left and right, I'd thought of, I don't know what I was thinking of it for, like a little documentary piece, or I was so fascinated in what was left on the cutting room floor. And I would meet people and producers and I would always ask what was left on the cutting room floor. What scene didn't make it? I always wanted to know what got cut. I care more about what got cut. And they would go, we cut that for time. We cut that because we felt like we already said that, or we could consolidate that. But more often than not, humor, this is like in sitcoms especially, like humor loses, story wins, right? No. But it's different in film. And I wish that I would love to know what didn't make it. I wish there was more. Like I know there's DVDs with deleted scenes, and we've gotten more of that with YouTubes and stuff. But I wish there were more. I wish there was like more of a dedicated place that was like, we know the movie. This is everything you don't know because it was either left out of the writing or left out of the cut.
That'd
be interesting.
This is almost exactly what I asked you 30 minutes ago about stuff that happened in your career. It's the exact same question. What was off? I love that.
I have a surprise, Dane. We have producer of the film on the line to tell us about the behind. Next time.
We've got John Hughes on the line.
We've got Ari Spitzman on the phone to come in and talk about.
I love that way of thinking too. What was left off? What were the possibilities? I love that.
I mean, we still got an amazing movie, obviously, that we cherish to this day. But yeah, it's like, what could have been? There are definitely things that could have been added and increased it a little.
Them, right? Sometimes we do see those scenes. Like Star Wars just released a scene of Luke and Leia having a very cringy conversation that was like, okay, that was like another version or left out. So it is kind of fascinating because you often wonder, is what they left the right version because we all believe it is because we've seen it, or was there one bad edit that made it an editor and a director look at each other and go, the scene's great, we just don't have the reaction, and they go, then cut it. But would it have made an impact to go, that made me love Steve Martin even more? I'm glad that he was kind of torched that woman at the rental place, or it's coulda, shoulda, woulda. But it is interesting to talk about that kind of stuff.
Because I mean, and it's so much of it is a gut thing, right? I mean, this movie's only an hour and a half or just a little bit over. But you do wonder, throughout that editing process, someone has to make a decision. and it can be one little thing that fucks the whole thing up.
Yeah.
And there's really no way of knowing, just because the editor thinks it's good or bad.
Yeah.
It doesn't speak to the the entirety of the American consumer. I find those things really fascinating because no one really knows.
When I do any film, television, I've done stuff that's like episodic or the only phone call I want, even if it's a amazing director and producers I respect, and I only want a fucking call from the editor. And I've said this for 20 years. If the editor calls me and goes, man, thank you. That to me, like sometimes I'll do takes with the director where I like want to get what they need. And then I give something really vastly different because I'm thinking like an editor going, if I don't become the focus of the scene because they want to maneuver it differently, let me give them some things that will lend to the reactionary moment of their other actor or maybe the lead actor or supporting, because that can happen. They can change the balance of a scene. I love that phone call, man. An editor will go, man, you gave us so many different colors because we're still deciding tonally where this takes the story. And like, that's the best compliment I've ever gotten in anything film-wise. Even though it's nice to have your director and everybody be like, you nailed it. No,
right.
The editor is the guy that's never going to forget, man, he did it the same way every time. It was fucking the same. I had nothing to edit off. He just did the same reaction and the same. It's a nice compliment when your editor says thank you.
I got to ask this, Ben, we were just talking about, we did our review on Better Call Saul. We just sort of a retrospective. And one of the topics, Dane, this is going to come right at you. One of the topics we talked about was the high level of production where every actor seems amazing. All the shots seem incredible, where you could almost plug anyone in and it'll look like they're a great actor kind of a thing. I know that's overstating it, but it's just so well done. So, Dane, I mean, you must have been on production. And I obviously, I don't want you to name anybody, but you must have been on sets, on productions where everyone is on board. I mean, you just described a situation where you're thinking about what the editor's going to do, based on how you produce. And there must have been times when no one knew what the fuck they were doing. How do you, both times happening? I mean, you can, how does that happen? And what do you do about it?
Here's what happens. Ready? You feel it starts with a conundrum feeling. And then that storm kind of builds as you're looking out onto the set and the conversation. I produced several films, with Lionsgate and other partners. And then that conundrum starts rolling into, little miniature hissy fits. Everybody's starting to get frustrated. And then here's what happens to me. I slowly start to go into almost a panic mode, but you don't see it. Okay. And then I hear this song in my head, hooray for Hollywood. And it's what gets me out of it because I start to realize this is one little piece. It's not stand up where it's all like I can breathe and we can all participate and either fall apart separately together in factions. But it happens on the daily, man. Every single day there's like fires to put out and you don't always know if it's going to come to fruition. But I have been in a couple of real janky situations where I'm with people that, and I won't name names either, they were not prepared for their moment. They didn't come prepared. Maybe there was something else that was obstructing their health and wellness. And then suddenly there's a chorus of people ready to be puppeteered by them. And they don't really know what they want to do. And that's very terrifying.
Yeah, terrifying. Sure. I'm sure terrifying for everybody. How do these studios know who's a good producer, director, writer? How do they figure this shit out?
It's all about who you know.
It's a lot about who you know. It's a lot about politics. It's a lot about buzz, and there's that whole thing that some people get their moments because you ever see that movie like The Player?
Yeah.
That movie is very real. It's like so much of that movie is like that's how it works. People go, I want you. Just because you're the belle of the ball. And then suddenly they're handing you millions of dollars and they're saying, now make that thing that we heard you did, but they don't really know what you do, or maybe they only saw a portion of it. and this town hangs its hat on the underdog that made this massive billion-dollar success or franchise, when we're not talking about the 20 or 30, or let's open up our iTunes movie list, and let's, like, there's a lot in there with people we know that you're like, what is this? What was that made? Who would even make that? Why would they make that? We spent money to tell, right? So that, we're really talking about the small percentage of the ones that, Lady Luck and all that other cool stuff, or maybe they're just a phenom and they're really in their moment, but most likely you're just hoping to collaborate with like-minded people that want to make something great, and if it works and finds its way and finds its audience, then suddenly you're like on the red carpet, like, aren't we cool?
Look at us. Just look at us.
We knew this would happen.
Well, I'm really interested in your idea, so I want to hear more.
Yeah.
I hope to see more of that in the future.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's kind of one of those things where, if I'm going to be really transparent, it's like, in a career, it's incumbent upon, you have to like almost reinvent yourself in a way every few years, because there's always somebody new and who's kind of like the darling, and then everybody else, even though people have modicums or multitudes of success, it's always about what's next, and so I think if I can just replant this comedy flag with what I think is what I hope people receive as the best work I've done, then from there that might start to put out that energy again, and we'll get a few more irons in the fire and have a fun couple of years making cool shit.
Well, you're Dane fucking Cook. You don't have to.
Yeah, that's you. That's your name.
God. You guys have seen my passport.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, we've examined it, and you're good to go, man. I mean, fuck, man. You don't gotta apologize. You don't gotta. You don't
have to prove yourself. You don't have
what
to.
The hell?
You'd be surprised, man. You guys. I tell you, you'd be surprised. Everybody, you do. It's funny because it's kind of a strange thing. You get into this industry and then you learn that it's like kind of always a little bit of like sitting at the blackjack table. You get a good shoe and you feel like it's never going to stop. And then suddenly you're like, why can't I get that momentum going again? And it really, what that speaks to me as is like, that just means I need to go somewhere and do two things: enjoy my life, enjoy all the hard work I put in, and then I need to recalibrate and maybe come back with something that speaks to who I am right now and not derivative of the last moment people saw you have. And so I'm always looking to like, I dip out. I love my life. I love helping other people kind of get their ideas off the ground, because I feel like my mentorship is as important to me today as being a creative, being out front. But once I put my heart and my soul into something like this new special, I do start to get like foolishly excited, going, all right, if this really connects, then you get that thing where it's like, what else do you want to do? And for a little while, you're just like, I'll take it all. Just give me every opportunity, So here we go. I feel good about it. And I hope you guys like the show. And I'm so appreciative that you guys had me on here. This was really a lot of fun.
No, absolutely, man. Anytime. And when does it come out again? And where can people see it?
We're in pre-order right now on, you can go to danecook.com. The link to the tickets are there. You can go to my website, and then it's going to be pre-order with kind of like cool. I worked with this great, talk about like being inspired. I worked with a great merch company that like just made these fucking design. I went to this merch company, and I won't bore you with a long story, but I said, I want this stuff to feel really, personal and have like a real great, flair to it. And the guy goes, what do you want it to feel like? And I was like, this t-shirt, I go, I want it to feel like the poster for To Live and Die in LA. And he came back with this thing. And if you look at one of the merch bundles, there's a picture of me on one of the limited edition shirts. And it's like, it looks kind of like the poster to Live and Die in LA. So all the merch, all the pre-order stuff is through my website and the link. And then it'll go live for everybody to watch on October 5th.
Amazing.
Awesome. Can't wait for it. Yeah, I'm so stoked to see it again. How many years since it's been since your last special?
Oh, Troublemaker was 2016.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're ready.
6 years. Yeah. So, and then
we got a new and improved Dane Cook for after all this.
And guys, don't forget buoyant Dane Cook.
Buoyant Dane Cook. That's right.
Yeah.
One last thing. Do you have any special stories about Steve Martin? I know you've had meals with him, and what?
Yes.
Any cool stories?
It's a simple story. It's a little story, but it speaks to why I think he's so tremendously funny. I meet him for lunch. He'd sent me the book. I didn't know that I was going to get the book. He sent me the book, and I asked his publicist. I said, "Am I allowed to ask? Can I bring him to lunch? Can I treat him to lunch?" His publicist said, "Yeah, tomorrow. Meet at this place."
Oh wow!
This place. I'm not saying because he likes to go there a lot for lunch. And when I walked in and I met Steve Martin, I knew a little bit about Steve Martin. I knew he was a very serious guy. I know he's a very low-key individual. And I heard that from friends that worked with him. They said, "Get ready. He's very low-key." And I sat down at the table and I can actually be low-key. Like I can go, I go into introvert mode sometimes where I'm very passive. But I knew that I couldn't in this moment because he was so passive that it would have been two people just sitting there like we were in a library eating. So I sat down.
Matzo ball soup.
He's with the matzo ball. You always got to go with the matzo ball soup. And so he's got his CD of his banjo music. And he's holding it. And he's very low key, and he's thanks for joining me for lunch, and I sat down and I'm like, okay, I know I can't be low key, so I kind of went into like you guys, if you had a guest on who was real kind of out of it, you'd probably pick up the mantle and be even a little bit more. You'd give the audience something.
We've been there. Yeah.
right. Name names. Come on.
No.
Okay. All right. For me later. Tell me.
Yeah, I'll email you.
But I'm like, okay, so I try to be upbeat, and he finally goes, well, I brought you a CD of my music with my band. I take it and I put it down on the corner of the table, and it's right there. And then for maybe the next 15 minutes, it's low key. I'll say that again. It's very low key. It's very polite, and we're talking a little bit about. I have a lot of questions. I'm dying. He's like my Yoda, so I want to go into what was it like in your first arena, and then I want it, but I'm gonna ease in. And by the way, I'm not gonna make it too long. I did get there, and maybe we'll start with that next time we chat about another film. But in this moment, minute 15, there's a lull. It's finally we've been yapping, and there's a lull, and he's like this. And he's just looking at me in the lull. And I know it's a lull, and we both feel the lull. Here's my face when there's a lull. I'm usually, what do I tend to do? I lean in, and my eyebrows go up. That's always my go-to frozen face of I'm kind of scared. I don't know what to say, but I think I look cool. So I kind of, and he's with it. And then finally, in the lull, he looked across the table and he looked down at the CD, and then he looked up at me and he went, "Have you listened to it yet?"
Oh, that is classic Steve Martin right there. That is. Oh my goodness!
What do you say to that?
You just want to hug him. I think at that moment, I think I was like, that was it. And by the way, I don't think he was really funny at all after that. It was pretty straight up serious, but I hear it, and it just was fucking perfect. It was a perfect, couldn't ask for another beat, reaction, quintessential Steve Martin moment than that.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. Well, that is brilliant. And Dane, it's been an absolute blast having you. So sorry we kept you so long. I could have kept you for 3 more hours. Yeah. I have so many things. I just want to say. Questions. So actually, I'm going to push record now, and then we can just talk.
Sorry, guys. I have a hard out at the hour of the jackal. What the fuck? Holy shit.
I just want to say you just were a huge not inspiration, but just I was a huge fan of yours and still am.
It was
and
an inspiration
just
for me.
yeah, exactly. And retaliation. Just I stole jokes from you in parties. So it wasn't stand up. So I feel like it was okay. It was the I'll kill you walking out of the Walgreens one. I had a couple friends believe that actually happened to me. So thank you for that.
Dane Cook for the assist right there.
Exactly. Thank you for that. But no, seriously. And one more thing, you couldn't make it a couple weeks ago, and you called me, and I just got to say that meant so much to me that you actually called and said why you couldn't make it, and that just speaks to your character. And thank you so much for that.
Oh man, you were very cool on the call, and I knew before and after that this was something I wanted to do sooner than later. So I'm glad we got it. And if this is highly rated, what do you think? Part 2 at some point, a sequel.
You were gonna hold you
I
to
already
that.
know my next film. It's already on tap.
It's right there in the noggin. Thanks, Dane. It's been a blast.
All right. Have
Best
a good
of luck, Dane.
Later.